first one was back in December. We got a lot of good feedback from the neighborhood during that meeting. We gave that to our consultants. They went out and did some additional survey, camera and design work, and they've now advanced the plans to a point where we can show you what some of those improvements might look like. So I'm going to hand it over to CMA, our design team, and they will take you through the presentation, and then we can open it up to some questions after.
Great. Hi, I'm Phil Corbett with CMA Engineers. I'm project manager on the project, and I'm here with Chris, who does a lot of the detailed design work, and Whitney, and I don't know if the rest of the town folks want to say hi. You guys are just hiding back there.
So I'm Steve Cronin, Public Works Director. My team's back there. We have Steve Dalton, our Water Source Superintendent, Jay Perkins, our Highway Superintendent, and Kirk Scammon is our Highway Operations Supervisor. So.
Good. So that's us. So yeah, we had our meeting and took that information along with some additional investigation and advance of preliminary design. That's primarily what we're here to present today. So we'll go through kind of, and not everybody maybe wasn't here the first one, so reiterate some things, but mostly it'll be new information presenting the preliminary design, but go over again kind of what the purpose of the project is and what the work completed has been done since the last time we met, and discuss a little bit about what we heard the first time, and you can tell us whether that's right or wrong, and then present our conceptual designs and kind of go over what's happening, what the schedule looks like moving forward. Hello.
Hello.
Yep, so that's it. Present the, so right, the purpose of the project, the primary drivers, it's as many of you may know that live in the neighborhood, the sewer mains in particular are old and dilapidated and in poor shape and definitely need to get replaced before we start having even more significant problems. So that's the main driver, and with that we're replacing the also original water line and then going to upgrade the drainage and then put everything back together with new roadway curbing and sidewalks. So and with that we'll incorporate some stormwater treatment into the stormwater design. So we did the public meeting number one. We also went out and met with some folks that were particularly impacted by the project, Agway and some other businesses across the street, to kind of make sure we're accommodating their needs and understand their concerns in particular. We completed, you might have seen them out there doing the boring, so they're kind of just investigating what's underground so we know what the subsurface conditions are for our design and for the contractor. We videoed the sewers, so we were primarily doing that to understand if there was significant infiltration and inflow, so water coming in the services into the main from individual services. So we did the entire neighborhood to check on that. And then also, yeah, obviously trees were a big issue the first time, as should be. There's lots of nice mature trees out there. So we assessed those and tried to make accommodations as we could for those, and then furthered the just overall layout, the utilities, drainage, sidewalk, and roadway. So, right, public meeting number one, I mentioned it. There was a lot of concern of the impact to trees, and someone asked the question up here. There are trees with different colors. Everybody can come up after and take a look at the map, and we'll have some more as we go through the presentation too. So we have done our best to not directly impact trees, and I think we should be pretty successful with that. And we particularly worked around trees that were of higher quality and in good health. There is one tree on Union Street near Garfield that is not in good condition, so we would take down anyway. But other than that, there's some that are kind of on the margins, and whenever you have construction and you've got to excavate for the roadway and the sidewalk, there's some potential that you're going to have root damage, and that's hard to assess until you actually get into construction. So the goal is to set ourselves up to minimize that as best we can. And so we kind of have green trees where we're pretty comfortable we're not going to impact, and then there's some orange trees. And again, we'll post all of this online, and you can come up and look at it after. We kind of have orange trees that as we go during construction, we'll make sure that we're not damaging the tree to the degree that it would have to be removed, which we have a lot of experience with and have been pretty successful with. And then there's just the one red tree that's going to come down, and I think that's about it. folks wanted to not widen the roads and kind of maintain the narrow width, so there's kind of a mix of curbing, and sometimes it's hard to tell where the sidewalk is and all that. So we've established a curved roadway, and we'll go through what those sections were. So for the most part, we're gonna maintain the pavement width, but you will have curbing, which is gonna make it feel on both sides, so it'll make it feel a little bit narrower. I mean, people park up against the curb, but when you're driving, you kind of shy away from the curb a little bit, so it adds a little bit of a traffic calming element to it anyway. And then maintaining on-street parking. So the plan right now is to pretty much allow the same configuration of parking that's out there today, which is parking on one side of the street, except for the narrow streets, the northern part of Union Street and Pursuit. And replace the sidewalks and replace them in a way that are maintainable, which is that both to meet law, federal law, ADA law, and to make sure we can maintain them with a plow. They have to be a certain width to make that happen, so we're able to achieve that. And address the drainage issues, which we will do with correcting some roadway profile and adding some drainage and all that sort of stuff. And issues with the sewer service. So, yeah, I mean, I mentioned we videoed the sewer. I mean, the town's perspective was trying to find a way to help address some of these sewer service issues. So in general, we touched on this the first meeting, the way the ordinance is written in Exeter is that residents own the sewer service all the way to the main, and when Town of Exeter comes through and does these projects, they don't want to leave an old section within the public right-of-way, so they typically replace out to the right-of-way or property line, which is often kind of even with the back of the sidewalk, and we put a clean out in. It might not be exactly right there, but somewhere in that range. One that can test it, but that also is another access point if you have to clean it. And then from there to the home, we're connecting to the existing sewer. So that is what we will be doing in this case, and the issue is that, you know, the town isn't allowed to do private property work. You can't spend public tax money, and in this case, we're in the state's SRF, State Revolving Loan Fund program, to do private infrastructure work. And so you kind of set a precedent as to what do you do for private impacts and private improvements, and it's a slippery slope as to, well, someone's driveway's not in good shape and should be, you know, so that it's pretty much, unless it's can clearly be defined as an overall public benefit, the requirement is that those improvements have to stay within the public right-of-way, so they can't spend those public funds to do the private sewer service. So we will help collaborate when there's issues, and we can't guarantee what the contractor that gets hired for is willing to do, but we have had instances where if there's a specific issue, they are willing to separately contract with individuals, because obviously we're engineers and we appreciate the efficiency of them out there and just getting it done, and the town wants to see everybody be happy too, but that can be a difficult situation. So I understand that issue, but that's kind of the approach we're stuck with for now. So that's kind of what we learned to date, and the information we took. I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll get through this real quick, and then we'll take questions right at the end there. That'd be great. And so yeah, now Whitney's just going to go through what we developed for our conceptual plans, and go over that a little bit, and then there's a few slides, and then we can get right to questions.
Okay. Hi, I'm Whitney. If you came to the meeting last time, you will recognize these slides are typical, so they're cross sections of the road. And last time we had more of this is what it would look like on narrow roads that do not have any sidewalk, on roads that have sidewalk on just one side, and roads that have sidewalks on both sides, and generally speaking what that would look like. Now the difference this time is that we're showing you these specific streets in your neighborhood and what we're intending to do for those streets. So the top of this page you can see Kossuth Street, 12-foot wide travelway, one-way road. School Street, 24-foot wide travelway, two-way road with sidewalk on one side. Union Street, the northern section, narrower, is 16 feet wide travelway. I guess technically a two-way, but that would be pretty hard to pass by. Union Street South is 24-foot travelway, sidewalks on both sides of the road. And Garfield Street, 24-foot wide travelway with sidewalk on one side. And how that differs from your existing widths of road, pretty much the only road that's narrower is Garfield Street. The others are pretty much the same. Now we're presenting the roadway, sidewalk, and drainage layout. So this just shows you an overall of what you'll see in more detail over here. If you can see, the orange just kind of defines those sidewalks where we just showed in the typicals. The yellows, the driveway hatch. Again, you can see that over here, and the road widths. And then we were just using this to show the drainage, where media box filters are some of the treatment that we're using right now for drainage. Thank you, Phil. And an infiltration best management practice in the parking lot of Agway. So I know that we have some interested parties here today for stormwater, so we just wanted to show that this is our initial thoughts. And to follow that, we've looked at different stormwater treatment options. We currently don't have any tree box filters included in our design yet, but we haven't ruled it out. And that's what they look like. The left side, the tree going into the box on similar projects that we've done. And media box filters, so we do currently have 4 of these planned as a way to remove sediment and treat for nutrients before the water is released, because it's in a drainage network that eventually gets out to the Squamscott River and the Little River. The water and sewer layout, similarly, we have an overall picture to kind of show water and sewer on each of the roads. They really minimally cross each other, once in the middle of Kossuth, and then at some intersections. But we are also investigating the potential to send half of the sewer on Union Street to Garfield and then out to Lincoln Street. And that is to improve the slopes on your services, to give it more pitch, because there is currently not a lot of pitch going to Front Street. So half would go to Garfield and half would go to Front. And next, the schedule. So the conceptual design was complete in June. The second public meeting is obviously tonight, and then the next public meeting would be in November, with that preliminary design complete in October. Final design October through February, and construction begins summer 2026. Now obviously this is subject to change because there's a lot of things that have to happen before the end, and getting to construction needs to be reviewed by the funding agencies and DES, the Department of Environmental Services. So there's a lot of back and forth too with the town, but we want the public to be involved, hence tonight and the previous meeting we had in April. So again, the first meeting was April. That was just to say, hey, this is our project, what's some input that you have? Now this second meeting tonight is really, this is what we've been thinking about doing as we've talked with the town. And the next meeting will really be, we've kind of come to a more complete design. Any questions or comments?
Currently, best of my knowledge, we have 0 curbs and therefore no driveway aprons. So what kind of curbs are you proposing? And will it include driveway aprons? And what will the sidewalk material be?
Okay, so from what I know of that,
Or
is
proposed?
yes, is that we are proposing granite curving, asphalt sidewalks, and the driveway apron. So we've highlighted your driveways in yellow. That does not mean that's what we're planning to pave. We're just showing you this is where it is, and it's helped us as we've done the design. But what we typically do is we have to go some amount into your driveway, because we may raise the road in places, lower the road in places, and we need to tie your driveway back into the new road elevation. So, I mean, sometimes it's a 5-foot paved area. Sometimes it's only a foot or so. It really just depends. When we get more into final design, we'll know the answer to that.
Sidewalk material?
Oh, I said asphalt.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Is there the opportunity to change that?
I'm sorry, for the asphalt, for the.
Versus concrete.
Yeah, I think it's the town standard. I think they developed so that we don't get into this issue of where's their concrete and where's, I think they've got defined regions of concrete downtown type of thing, and then outside of that, the town standard is asphalt.
So that would be something that you could look up, because I I know that
Yep.
Lincoln Street, right, in front of the
Yep.
school, that
Yep.
whole area is not asphalt.
Correct.
Yeah, I
Um,
would say
Yeah, right.
the plan right now for this project would be asphalt sidewalks. Asphalt's a little bit more forgiving considering the conditions we're working in. We have tree roots that are gonna be adjacent to sidewalks, so when you get into things like concrete and concrete slabs, those tend to lift as a whole and crack more. So you're gonna have a little bit more flexibility in that surface with asphalt. So it's really the better application for the project that
It just doesn't look as nice.
we agree.
In the blue.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering if you could expand a little bit more on your sewer investigation. Like you said that you guys, what did that mean? Did you spot any problems in
Yeah,
the
so
process? And then
there's-
number two,
Sure,
I know you guys did Lincoln Street, right?
yes.
How many houses had issues? Like, we need to anticipate if we're going to have a connection and what it would cost and that type of thing. 'Cause
Right.
we're not familiar with that.
Right, sure. We didn't do all the sewer on Lincoln Street because a lot of it had been replaced within the last 30 years or so. There were a few issues, but not too many, but I think you are probably an older vintage than a lot of that stuff was, believe it or not. So what we did was, we primarily were looking to see if there was obvious groundwater flow coming in from the services that would, that's something the town would want to get rid of because they have to treat all that groundwater at the treatment plant. And if that could help justify doing some additional sewer service work, then you might be able to build that case as the public benefit, but that's not what we found. And so there wasn't much more, the CCTV was just stopping at each service and kind of looking up at it and seeing what's going on. They're not able to, with what they did, they have a little camera that's on a little truck that fits in the 8-inch main, and they go down and look at each service. So they're not able to go down your home service. There are ways to do that, Roto-Rooter or other companies, they could, if you really wanted to know, it's not extremely expensive to get your individual services investigated if you wanted to anticipate ahead of construction, hey, it looks like mine's in bad shape and maybe this is the time to do something about it. But that's about all we know about the services, just was there groundwater coming in?
Okay, well, if we say you start digging and then you're like, hey,
Yeah,
this
we would
address,
definitely
you've
notify
got
you and said,
problems.
oh, this does, we're trying to connect to it, it keeps breaking, it obviously looks like there's a bunch of roots. That would be, there's gonna be a resident engineer on site that will be monitoring that, and they'd say, hey, this is what your sewer service looked like, it doesn't look like it's in great shape, and they would let you know as they're making the
And then
connection.
we have to find somebody to come and do the connection. Is that usually something that has to be done in like it's a time
You
of
wouldn't
the
have to do the
essence?
connection, you would, if you decided to replace the rest of the service between where we connect at the kind of the back of the sidewalk to your home, then you would be responsible for that. We would not leave you with an unconnected service. We would connect to your existing service, but it may not be beyond the new service they put in, what's beyond there to your home may not be in great condition, and we will let you know about that.
And she is asking when, but she wouldn't have to replace it right then or
No.
any specific time.
Okay,
No.
yeah, that's what I was concerned
Yep,
about.
sorry, right in back.
So assuming we know it needs replaced because we've already done the investigative work,
Sure.
my assumption is you have vendors or people that you would refer that the resident engineer would give us the name of so that work could be done simultaneously and it would be efficient?
Yeah, I mean, the scale of this project, several $1 million to the type of contractor that often is probably more affordable for individual homeowners. Those are often two separate types of contractors, but we definitely do know some folks that we could try to gather up a list of folks and say, hey, these guys might be, and it's not, again, it's not to say that, we have done projects where the general contractor that is doing the work, they weren't oversubscribed in the case where they weren't comfortable taking on additional work, and they would separately contract with individual homeowners, but that's totally at their discretion.
So-
We can't make them do that.
Right, so given there's a few of us that definitively know that there are issues, we want to ensure that your teams, your collective, the town and the engineers, are prepared to partner with us to ensure that work, that we can hire a company to do that work that will work with your teams, and all of that can be done in a timely way. So if we need to reach out to you individually and you can give us names and we can have folks come sooner rather than later, it's not a perhaps, it's a definitive, this is going to need to happen, and we would rather it happen when the road is dug up.
So we can provide contractors who are licensed to do work in town. So if they're doing sewer work in town, they have to come to us and basically get on a list with us saying that they're qualified to do it. So we can't necessarily recommend anybody, but we can provide you with a list of people who are essentially allowed to work in town. And you can contract with them directly, and then they would coordinate with us when our work is happening to do the work on your homes individually.
Yeah, and you could do that. It doesn't necessarily have to be sequenced exactly when this work is going on. You could do that ahead of time, and we would know where your sewer service is on, and we would just connect up to that new service. Or it could happen the other way around, where we replace the service to the sidewalk, and then you come in after that. I mean, you may not want to have the disruption of the construction multiple times, but
That's exactly right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that may be an issue. But other than that, the other sequencing likely doesn't have to line up perfectly.
Well, and Phil, I just feel it also, I personally wouldn't do it on my property first before construction, because a lot
Correct.
changes during construction.
Correct.
So I think,
Yeah, so you wouldn't want to put yourself in a position where you're, like, have to restart.
So,
that kind of-
about that question, it's another sewer is so exciting, and important. What Ann and Kara each said is tied in with my question. I noticed in your cross-section drawings that you have a sewer clean out into the private property, is that right?
Yeah, that's not, no, it
Okay.
actually would be on public property. That diagram, we just didn't edit it, but yes, it
Okay.
would be on public property.
it was just
Yep.
a visual.
Yeah,
Okay, and so, specific to Kara's question, at some point, whether we do, she and I share a line,
Oh,
and it's very funky,
yeah,
and we want two connections,
yep.
and 2 new lines to our houses. So coordination is important, but the questions here would be, do we have any say where the new sewer connections go? 'Cause
Sure.
with, Chris, is it, it's where it would go now on our paper, is right where there's a storm drain. So-
there's plenty of flexibility in where we make that connection.
So
If you
would
wanted
we-
to move it.
Would we present that to the town in the form of, like, if we hire a contractor and we have drawings, would
Mhm.
we present the measured drawings to you and
Yes.
say, can you work around? And would you give us feedback, well, you need to go 2 feet this way or that?
Pretty much just on your property, and we'll connect anywhere within there. Wherever you end up should be fine. And we can, in the future service, I mean, if that's there ahead of time, obviously, then we would connect to that point with a new service, yes.
Yeah, so, and how that usually works is, so we tend to try to put the sewer back where, the new sewer in the same relative location as the existing, so that as we're excavating, we can find your service from before. So that's how we know, okay, they're roughly here, so that as we go up to the property line, we can connect right to it. So that's most ideal situation for us. But
Yeah, you have one service, it's not, we would just, the reason we have to do that is because the town has no idea where the services are, no one documented that, so
Right.
we go along the existing service line and you intercept a service line, you're like, oh, here's one that goes over to this house, and you connect up. And you have to, if you don't do that, you have to go in and investigate and try to find where individual services are.
But that's also where it's really helpful that knowing that there is only one service, it goes to 2 houses. I mean, we would tend to put a new service line going to every single house, and we will do that no matter what. So what would happen is it would just be capped and buried and maybe staked out so we know where that is. And then at the time when you're ready to put the rest of your service from your house to that point, you know where it is.
And how do we coordinate the data? I know I'm asking some nitty-gritty questions, but in my neighbor Kara's house and mine, we have the minimum slope down, making gravity our friend.
Mhm.
And so will your new hookup be higher or lower?
It would be at the same or lower. Your end of Union Street, there's not a lot of opportunity to gain additional depth.
I know.
So we're kind of at minimum depth already, but the goal would be, I mean, obviously, we need to be at the same elevation because we can't get to a service and be higher, so we need to make sure that everybody's gonna flow by gravity.
Right, so with, where the rubber hits the road, how closely can we coordinate so that on the Z coordinate,
Yeah, we don't have that yet,
our opening tallies up with yours?
So-
Yeah, we don't
How
have
does
that yet, but
how does
as
that
we-
happen in reality?
Yep, yeah, we will know soon as we iron out the final design, we'll start to work out exact type elevations, and we should be able to say, hey, your service is gonna be here, and it would be this depth, and it won't be hard to do that.
Okay, thanks.
So would it be fair to say by the next public meeting, we'll have a pretty good idea of where that sewer elevation is gonna be? You can then take that to a contractor and say, hey, what's it gonna take to tie in here at this elevation and in this location on my property? And then we can.
Great.
Yeah, and so what we'll really have the details of is the elevations of what the main has to be and roughly what that elevation would be where your house is. Now, to get to the nitty gritty, I mean, it's hard to know because we don't know the exact elevation of your sewer service leaving your basement or your house. So that's where, I mean, if you wanted to go above and beyond and tell us it's this many feet below my floor, then that would be helpful for that reason, but I don't think that's what people should be doing. Only those that are very concerned about this.
What's your datum? What's
I
your
got a
zero?
question.
We have other,
Let's, other questions back there, Mary.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just
one
wanted
question.
to ask
Yeah,
to
sorry,
get
go ahead.
the answer to mine.
NVE 88.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Yes.
Quick question, last, oh, was it your turn?
no, go
Okay. Sorry. Last time you said it's gonna take 2 construction seasons, so I'm trying to understand the process.
Yeah, no,
of the way.
we haven't gotten to that point. We would be to that point at the next time to kind of really size up exactly costs and expected construction durations. It's definitely gonna be a full construction season, and whether it would all be done in one construction season, we would know the next time. There is some potential that it would be two.
See, that's what
I don't think it's gonna be a significant construction season, but it also depends on how restrictive you wanna be to the contractor. And the more restrictive you are, the more costly it is. So we have to work with the town and decide how much flexibility we give them and how much duration we give them and all those sorts of things. But we should know more what a reasonable time frame is by the next.
Which will hopefully be 1 construction season.
Well, that, certainly, we understand how disruptive
that's what-
it is and
yeah.
try to, but it's a matter of if you overly restrict that time frame, then it just becomes too expensive because people can't do it efficiently.
So for the town, typically time is money, and so we would hope that it would happen sooner, within one construction season, but it all depends on contractor availability, how many crews they have, what they run into for issues underground. So there are a lot of factors, but yes, that would be our preference, is to get it done as quickly as possible.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I have 3 different things to say, but I won't say them. One is just about my specific house. Can I talk to somebody individually after this meeting?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Get
come
some
on up
idea.
and
One thing is just a comment that I will, the development that was done on Lincoln Street, just please put it in the record, the landscaping that was done was just poorly executed. Like, I would hope that we could have a higher level of quality control. They put in crappy fill, they put in a bunch of dead trees, like, it was just, so that's just a comment. I don't know if I can ask for better quality control, but I am. And then I do have a question, like, and tell me what I should do here. I have an old house, 1860s with a rock foundation. The last time there was major construction across the street when they were camping ahead of the pavement, was shaking my house. The glass was shaking, there was dust and rubble coming off. Anyways, what can I do? What should I do? What's gonna happen when you're paving right in front of my house?
Hold on tight, that's
Yeah.
what it does, I have the same thing.
Glue my rocks together in the basement?
When
Like,
the
yeah,
train
more.
goes by.
Yeah, no, so, that is common we work in a lot of old communities, and we require contractors control their vibrations and monitor that, and so depending on the type of houses and the proximity you are to those houses, you are limited as to what you can do for vibrations. So they're gonna be required to go out and do a survey, and they would ask to go in your house and say, all right, what's it look like now? And just to make sure that post-construction, or if you had an issue, they would have documents and say, yep, it looked like this, and now obviously there's some cracks and damages. And as they're doing that work, they would monitor the vibrations to make sure they're within certain ranges that wouldn't damage the old foundations. That would be the hope.
And I just wanted to add that when we do vibration monitoring surveys and those get sent out, a lot of times people do not respond. So, and then I guess that's at your risk. If you don't want somebody to come in your basement or you think it is spam, we try to make it as obvious as possible that this is legitimate. But that is helpful for you and the town if you accept that and have them.
Is that like coming in the mail? I need to.
Yeah, it would either be a door hanger type of thing or in a mail. We would say, hey, and the contractor's company coordinates this, but they are the ones that go do the survey so they can size up anyone that'll let them in, what the conditions are, and if there's any issues, then they can know if something happened.
But that wouldn't be until we're about to start construction, so.
So the implication is they'll repair it if there's damage?
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
yes.
Just sort of practicalities, will there be long periods of time where we don't have water? Will there be long periods of time where you can't park in the driveway or get into the street? Like, how will that work?
Yep, no, good question, and we would, in addition to another public meeting, just to kind of present anything that changes here tonight, often have kind of a pre-construction meeting to describe, introduce you to the contractor and the resident engineer and describe all those details, but construction is definitely disruptive, and there's times when you can't access roads as much as you'd like to, and there's gonna be sections that, are closed as they're moving the work zone. In general, if your driveway's gonna be blocked, the resident would notify you the day before, hey, we're gonna be out here tomorrow, and you'd see it coming too. They're digging down the road, it doesn't happen that fast. As far as water goes, it depends on exactly how they do it, but likely they're going to provide temporary water, which would be over the ground, and you have connections that would provide water while they're reconstructing the underground water. So there are times when they accidentally hit the water main and they have unplanned interruptions, but in general, it's just once in a while, we would notify you a couple days ahead of time, hey, there's gonna be a 4-hour water shutdown because they gotta switch over from one main to the other or something like that. But there shouldn't be disruptions beyond that.
Two more questions. How is that notification made? Because I'm a tenant, and so depending on the time of year, a letter sent to the
Right,
homeowner
yep.
might take 3 weeks to get to her, so.
Yeah, so it would typically be a door hanger so that people living there know that that's gonna happen.
Okay, and if the red trees, the trees that are being monitored.
One red, yep.
Or not red, the orange
Orange,
trees.
yep.
If an orange tree is irreparably damaged by the process, can't be restored, will you plant something new after the work is done?
We haven't discussed that with the town, but I think there's certainly potential to do that. I mean, I think, in general, we try to look at corridor wide and have a plan in place, so it's not just, all right, it makes sense to put this tree back here, because it might be a different species, there's certain rhythm and pattern you're trying to accomplish, but in general, that's probably achievable, I would expect.
Thank you.
Yes?
Have you done any preliminary grading for the road elevation or anything along those lines?
So, as far as the design goes?
Yeah.
Yes, yep, yeah, so it's flat out there, and, so, we're trying to make sure that all the roadway drains reasonably well, so we're just reestablishing what they call the crown to get both the lanes to kind of slope to the curb, and then longitudinal slope, so draining along the curb line, so it's kind of a little bit up and down to make that happen, because it's just too flat from one end to the other, but it is achievable to, throughout the corridor, provide enough slope on the pavement to improve the drainage everywhere.
Okay, so one question that I had was, so do you know if the road elevation is gonna stay relatively the same, because there's gonna be a proposed I'm right on the corner of Kossuth and Garfield Street,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a proposed sidewalk going essentially the entire radius, and if that's coming up, then there's gonna be like a drop off on pretty much either side of the sidewalk. So I'm just curious, it's like how the elevations are gonna work in this particular.
Yep, no, good question, and it is a challenge. It doesn't always work out perfectly, but that is what Chris does, is spend days and days trying to, we can't just put a sidewalk in 8 inches higher than someone's lawn behind it. So oftentimes we have to drop the road to make the curb work, to make the sidewalk work. So a combination of trying to improve the drainage, and when you're in rather densely developed areas, you're constantly trying to make that match. So like, Union Street is cross-sloped, right? So in order to make it work, so we could tie in on both sides, it's actually isn't crowned, it's all sloped in one direction. So those are the things, and again, it doesn't always work out perfectly, and sometimes we have to work with people. We won't leave it in a condition where it's unacceptable. We might have to go into someone's yard and regrade it a little bit, and we would work with them to do that. But in general, that's the goal, is to try to make it match as well as we can.
And then just one last question on the same topic. Do you know what, based on your boring results, like what the disruption is gonna be to the sub-base for like actually paving the road and the sidewalk? Because along that same sidewalk, there's, I think there's 3 pretty large trees that are in pretty poor condition, at least in my opinion. So I feel like if you're taking down like 2-3 feet, those things are toast.
We haven't worked out the entire plan for the roadway base section, no. I mean, the sidewalk is gonna be about 9 inches of gravel, those pretty consistent, so it's about a foot basically from the surface down. But the roadway, we still need to go through that process to figure out exactly what's that, sometimes you can reclaim it, sometimes you need to box all that out, put the gravels in, and you need to figure out that the soil below the road box is actually pretty good, so it shouldn't have to be super thick, but we haven't figured all that out yet.
It's mostly
Yep.
sandy.
It's like 15 feet of sand. I talked
Which
to the
is
board
absolutely
guys.
great in New England, because it drains super well, and
I know.
that's what damages roads, is frost heaves, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes?
I'm just curious about these granite curbs, and if there's a value to them besides aesthetics, if we're not getting beautiful sidewalks like the other parts of town that got the granite curbs, why are we bothering? Because these, to me, it sounds like that's gonna impact the highs and lows and also impact the sort of country vibe of some of these streets where the kids ride their bikes and, we walk back and forth and all of a sudden we've got steps to deal with and.
Yep, yeah, so that's a perfectly reasonable question, and something we do consider is whether you need curbing everywhere. So one of the functions is just to capture and kind of contain drainage, because right now it's kind of all over the place and it's hard to get that collected and into the closed drainage system. And the other is we just want to protect, particularly on the sidewalk side, you want to keep cars, right now, they're all over the sidewalks, they're parking on the sidewalks, and there's nothing to constrain them from staying on the road and not encroaching onto the sidewalk, so it provides a little bit of.
Not really parking on the sidewalk.
You
Some
park
of
up on the grass.
some
Well-
places there are no
Depends on the
defined sidewalks.
Right, yep, and so
But-
this would help define the sidewalk and say, here's the sidewalk and we're gonna protect it from people parking and you're not gonna park up over the sidewalk. And so that would be another reason to do it. And once you have it on one side, it can be difficult not to then include it on the other side to make everything work. You've kind of lowered everything down.
No parking signs also help, because that usually just happens in front of some of the
Yeah.
houses that are so close that it takes, there's like no option for people, so, anyway. Just saying.
Yes.
So I'm on School Street and it looks like from what you were showing up there, the section that I live, we currently have sidewalks on both sides. So the sidewalk is going to be removed on one side.
On the west side, yep.
What happens to,
That's grass, yep.
okay, so that cars won't be like driving closer to the houses and stuff like that?
Right, yeah, no, the road width pretty much stays the same, and then that'll just be lowered and seated on that side. That's the current plan, because we can't get the sidewalk to go all the way down, that's why they stopped it now, and so having that for some limited stretch didn't seem to make a lot of sense. So that's currently the plan.
And then the parking is also only allowed on one side of that street as well. Is that going to remain on the same side or does that switch?
Yeah, as far as I know, we haven't found any reason to switch it. I mean, if there was, I think the town could consider it, but otherwise, we know that it's only definitely gonna be on one side, not allowed on both sides. And I don't know if there's a rationale for one versus the other.
School.
Yeah, so, would it be advantageous, you're saying, to switch it to the other side that it's on now?
No, this is the neighbor who lives across from me, so she probably doesn't want to hear this, but I'd rather them park on her side.
Yes.
Question on Garfield Street. Same kind of question. The
sidewalk on one side, but from 15 kind of down towards the corner, a couple hundred feet, there's, I would call it a residual sidewalk.
Right.
It's pretty much sun flush to the road almost. And I and others park on that, like you said, we drive right up over it to try to minimize the amount that our cars stick out into the roadway.
Mm-hmm.
So, also there's a telephone pole that's out there right by the curb, what's left of the curb. So is that you gonna move the telephone pole, or are you gonna fill that with grass? I mean,
So, I'm not sure if I can picture everything you're talking about. I understand there's kind of like a beaten path on the north side of Garfield from Lincoln Street to Union Street.
yeah.
And that's on private property, so we're not proposing to put a sidewalk there now.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
Yep.
There is a sidewalk there. It's just so low and flat to the roadway.
Oh, okay.
That I and myself and others, like I said, parking in front of the houses will kind of edge the tires up onto that, leaving a couple of feet for people to walk, but at least, so the cars don't stick out so far. So if that remaining sidewalk is gonna go away,
That is currently the plan, so that would be something that we could take a look at, and is it, you know, the alternative would be, do you bump the curb out a little bit to provide some more space for parking, and does any of that make sense? And
Yeah.
that's something that we could take a look at. But
Yeah.
yes, right now, the plan would be to have a 24-foot curb width, and you would be pushed out into the, further out of the road, yes.
right, which would just make travel on the road more difficult for everybody.
Which is part of the rationale to do it, you
Yeah.
know, because it acts as a traffic calming and discourages people from cutting through and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the trade-off, is that you're, you know, Lincoln Street, it's more of a through street, and you're getting people out of the travel way, where this is you're constraining people to almost one-way traffic, and they gotta kind of pull out of the driveway. So it discourages them from going fast and from cutting through the neighborhood.
That'd be great, but can we talk about it later, maybe after?
Sure. Yeah, no, let's take a look at what you have, and then we can see. I understand what you're saying, I just can't envision exactly what it looks like there.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that Garfield's gonna be, more narrow. Is that because you're gonna like have a wider sidewalk and then like a grassy area?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a balance of, it's not necessarily needed unless someone says otherwise and says, hey, we really would benefit from having a little bit more space to park on and having some more room. That's a reasonable suggestion. But yes, we would be, the current section is to have a sidewalk and then about a 5-foot grass strip.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that's where the utility poles and everything else would be, and then a 24-foot paved roadway outside of that.
If I'm not mistaken, Chris, we couldn't fit sidewalk both sides on Garfield.
No, not on Garfield. There's right-of-way issues on the northern side.
In that grassy area, in the photo, like the image that you guys showed, I think I saw a tree. Are you guys planning on planting trees in that area on Garfield?
No, those are existing trees. There's not, yeah, there
Okay.
isn't a additional landscape plan right now. And again, we'll work with the town as we get through final design and see if there's some other accommodations we wanna make and plan for during construction, but in general, we're maintaining the mature trees that are there is the kind of the plan.
Okay, are we allowed to like plant trees then?
You can't plant trees in the public right of way.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there may be a way to do that through the town,
Yeah.
but, yeah, no, it's public. Yes?
If this starts next summer, what's your order of streets? You're doing multiple streets at the same time, or, and then what is the projected timeline? You said construction season. It just takes two. What's a construction season?
Yeah, so the Town of Exeter allows construction kind of start mid-April, and then that's usually done by Thanksgiving-ish, as you get into conditions that you can't construct in. That can vary depending on weather conditions. So that's a typical Exeter construction season. And as far as the sequence goes, again, unless we have a good reason to prescribe what that should be, we leave it open, because we're letting the contractor use their ingenuity to competitively bid on these things and figure out a way to get it done efficiently. So there are times in certain projects where you're like, you gotta get this part done first, but in general, we leave that open to try to reduce the price of the project so they can figure out how they can get it done most efficiently. Typically, they would do the deepest utilities first, which is often the sewer, And they would just get that done everywhere, and then come back and do the water, and then come back and do the drainage. So there'd be sequential work on all of the streets, and then they would come back and build the roads.
When will we get that timeline?
That wouldn't be until we bid the project and get a contractor on board, and then they would say, hey, this is our plan, and then we would be able to post a construction schedule.
When are you gonna bid the project?
The goal would be to bid it next spring.
Next spring? Because, you know, it would be helpful, obviously, for people to have some sense of, you know, if they're having access to their home, people visit.
Yeah, no, if there's specific access issues, that gets coordinated individually, and then as we're in construction, there's a project website where we'll just continually post updates. Hey, this is what they've done, and this is what they plan to do next week, so you know, all right, on School Street, they're doing this, and you'll have a sense of, if you check that, you'd have a
From
sense
your
of what's going on.
experience, like, let's just pick a street, like, say, Union Street, if that started, if you started in, say, June first, you know, best case scenario, better if it's April, when would you anticipate, if best, you know, best case scenario, when that, would that be done in one construction season?
It certainly could be, but again, we wouldn't prescribe them to say, you've gotta do Union Street first, and you gotta get it done. Because they would typically have a crew that does sewer, and they would do sewer in the whole project area, and they would come back and do water, and they would do water in the whole project. Or they may have several crews, because they wanna keep things, so, again, we'll work with the town to figure out how prescribed we wanna make that. But in general, it's fairly wide open, and so it just totally depends on how they
Okay.
sequence the work.
So is the streets all dug up during that waiting period for each stage, if the street's dirt road for,
Yeah, so they're required to make it passable, but it's not
okay.
great.
Wow.
But yeah, again, construction is disruptive, but, yes, they would require to have some sort of gravel surface that is a temporary surface that is passable and not damaging cars and accessible during wet rain and
But
things
it could
like
be 2 years of that.
that. Yeah, unlikely that it would be 2 years of that, but yes, yeah, it could be 2 construction seasons, yeah.
So I have two questions. I'm confused about the trees, in particular the oak tree on Union Street. The roots are such that the sidewalk is heaved. And I think it's the only one that's that pronounced. But how are you gonna, if you're gonna keep that tree, how are you gonna reconcile the elevation of the sidewalk with those pushed up roots?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what's going on in there, but in general, we would try to provide it as much room as possible between the curb and the sidewalk, so that we're limiting how closely we need to excavate, and then potentially raising things up a little bit in that area so that we don't have to dig down as much to put the curb and sidewalk in. But again, there's definitely potential that you have some impacts during construction.
Yeah, so, and if we weren't to take those trees out, it'd probably be a little more of like a roller coaster sidewalk where we're going up, accommodating the tree roots and over, whereas, you know, what we like is, excavate, everything is perfectly straight, like go across, you can look and see this beautiful sidewalk, but, you know, keeping trees, you have to meet in the middle. So we've done that in Portsmouth, is like, you just go kind of keeping the roots, not cutting them, and, yeah,
So-
and matching it on either side.
My other question relates, the west side of Union Street is higher, the sidewalk on the west side is higher than the sidewalk on the east side. And so all the houses are gonna have an elevation change with respect to their yards. Some stairways come almost right up to the existing sidewalk. So how do people work that out so that?
Yeah, they won't work it out with us. We figure that out ahead of time, and that's, again, we talk through that a little bit. It doesn't always work out perfectly, because you're trying to make the drainage work, but we are looking at every stairway and walkway connection and that's why Union Street isn't crowned, it's cross slopes, so the pavement slopes all in one direction, because there are the elevation differences from one side to the other.
So you pretty much keep that slope?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
And for those of us with long-standing existing conditions that are against these sidewalks, you're figuring that out.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
dealing with
mean,
it the way you would our basements if there's significant, like, am I suddenly responsible for replacing a significant run of fence that
Yeah, we're on Union Street, as you come up to Front Street, there's about 100 feet of an old wooden fence right there, and it's, what happens there?
Yeah, no, so the first plan would be to accommodate it and not have any impacts during construction, and if we couldn't avoid that, then the contractor would be responsible for removing it, resetting it, replacing it, something like that. So that wouldn't be, any impacts from construction on private property that are needed would be part of the contract, and we would work that out with you individually. We would have a memorandum that says, hey, this is what needs to happen because of this, and you'd say, okay, I agree, and you'd have to sign it and say, yep, I'm okay with them doing this.
And then just dimensionally though, as far as that section, it looks like the plan, thank you very much, is to try to leave that line intact, right?
Yes.
It looks like you've laid out the sidewalk essentially along that fence line.
Yep.
Or, so I mean, it might get damaged, but it's not like definitely coming in 5 feet sort of
No,
thing.
no, yep, yeah.
The proposed backside of the sidewalk more or less matches in where the existing sidewalk is today.
Right, it's just when they are excavating, obviously,
Sure,
you get
sure.
really close.
That's when my house
things
falls
can
down
happen.
and the trees down. At
Yes.
least the plan is good.
On Cassuth Street, you're projecting to widen it a little bit to 12 feet. How's that gonna affect especially my house where that room physically touches the road?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a typical section, so there may be individual accommodations. Obviously, that's a unique street and
Yes.
has lots of constraints. So we're not gonna be widening the road into your house. But there, yeah, as we go down the road, we'll look at each one of those accommodations and try to make what fits best.
And are you planning on doing a crown on Cassuth Street?
I don't think so, I can't remember.
That was the plan.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Can we flatten that crown? Because I have a fieldstone foundation as well, it'll right in.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're not curbing Cassuth Street now, I don't
No.
remember. Well, yeah, no, so, we certainly don't want to shed water to areas where they didn't go before. We wanna try to contain it and capture it as best we can, so I think in particular, we can make sure we get close up to that, make sure.
Yeah, I mean, even just a little berm of pavement or something, just,
Yep, yep,
that'd be cool.
We've been out in a rainstorm, but maybe we'll go out in the next one.
yeah.
Well, actually, it sounds like that's now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good forever. Yes.
Question, are we getting granite curbs like the rest of the town seems to be having?
Yes.
Yes, and number two, I have an issue with people parking in front of my house because I have trees, especially, in the summertime. And so I can never get my side of the street fully swept by the street sweeper. Is there any chance we can move the parking to the other side of the street?
Again, yeah, I mean, we would work with the town and certainly take your input, and if there was a good rationale for one side or the other, I haven't really thought through it honestly enough. But we knew we were gonna have it maintain pretty much what's there on one side or the other. If we could collectively decide that for the neighborhood it made a ton of sense one side or the other, then you could consider that, but.
Well, there's a lot more parking on the other side of the street. It's just that.
Not necessarily.
We have a lot,
It's-
we have a
it's-
lot of, excuse me.
it's all the same.
Just a minute. We just have a lot of renters, and we have a lot of Airbnbs, and they all seem to want to park in front of my house. So it would be easier for me to not have that happen.
Got it.
Because I
And
can
what-
hardly
what would
get
be
out
the
of my
address?
driveway without risking my life when they're, whizzing by.
Which street is this?
Union,
And what's your address?
15.
50. So yeah, again, we need to do what makes the most sense for the neighborhood and everybody else, but that's why you're here, is to give that input and let us know what you think.
I have a question for the town. And it's my last question unless you come up with another thing. So, is it possible to arrange for the neighborhood folks to use the parking lot at Ag Way? Somehow, I don't know what the verb is, reserve spots for us? I'm thinking about if we have to abandon our driveways.
I think that was.
Yeah, you won't have to abandon your driveways, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
there'll be, just the day you're paving.
Okay.
There may be times when you don't have on-street parking, and we could talk to the town about, is there other accommodations, but likely, the contractor's gonna need that area for their staging and their equipment, so that might already be impacted, but, yeah, if there's significant parking impacts, we try to think through that, and is there other accommodations that can be made, but everyone is gonna still be able to park in the driveway.
Thanks.
Yes.
And add on to that, what about the old handkerchief company? That parking lot is pretty much desolate, and it's right there at Garfield Street.
Yeah, so I think that's private property, I don't know too much about it, so I don't know how much control or leverage the town has with that. Okay, anything else? Great, well,
I have one more.
sure,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
Is there any chance we're getting, concrete sidewalks like Lincoln Street has?
No. Well, the current plan is to have asphalt sidewalks, which is kind of consistent with the town's overall approach.
Except that the next street over has.
Yeah, Lincoln
Beautiful.
Street's different, right, yep, that's not, yep, so a little bit different character and prescription, but, yeah, the town's general overall approach is in neighborhoods, there are asphalt sidewalks.
Except for Lincoln Street.
Yeah, it's a little bit different character, right? Yep.
We have a school on School Street.
Yeah, yep. Yes.
Sorry, quick question, I feel like we talked about this last time, but, if we do wanna get our driveways paved at the same time, are we able to try and, like, you help us do that? I mean, like, we pay for it, but like, while they're doing the sidewalks, can we coordinate that?
So there definitely can be coordination, but again, we can't, I mean, there's some potential that you can work with the contractor, but we can't force them to be like, hey, you gotta work with these people and do their whole driveway.
Okay.
You could say, hey, we're gonna rip up your part of your driveway, and you could say,
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna put it all back, and that's fine. But otherwise, they're just gonna go to the, whatever, 7 feet in and stop and connect up to your existing driveway. Unless they are like, yeah, we're happy to pay us to do the rest of it, which, again, isn't uncommon, but I have seen people that don't wanna get involved also.
And we did talk about that, something that would go on the town's website. So it's similar, we're doing a very similar project in Portsmouth right now, and so I'd go to every construction meeting, and I'd be like, what do I need to tell the residents for next week? And then I would email the town. So I see that happening here too, and then whoever at the town posts that to their website would say, hey, we're paving like a week from now, or 2 weeks from now. And so that would be something you could think about. So, hey, I wanna be around, I don't wanna be on vacation or something like that.
Well, great. Well, thanks for coming. Yeah, and as we mentioned, we will take this input, again, work with the town. We gotta get through things with the state, and then kind of have things, a final button-up plan that we present late fall. And yes, if you have any individual questions, we'll hang out here if you want to talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you.